Hey, this is Jake Taylor, your host of the world's first interview Hikecast. We dive deep as interesting people take me on their favorite hikes. So if you're ready for something a little different, throw this on, get outside, and come take a hike with us. Today we're going for a hike with Nyle Bayer. Nyle is the Chief Marketing Officer at Helios Quantitative Research, an investment research company which assists financial advisors in creating, implementing, and monitoring quantitative investment strategies for their clients. Helios boasts over $20 billion in assets under influence. Previous to his work at Helios, Nyle served as the president of Up Capital Management, a registered investment advisor, and he's the founder of Financial Time Traveler, a financial media company. Nyle is a father of 3 children and lives in Roseville, California with his wife, Nicole. We went for an awesome hike in the Sierra Nevadas. Please enjoy this Hikecast with Nyle Bayer. But first, please save a spot on your shelf for my new book that's available now. It's called The Rebel Allocator, and it's a fictional coming-of-age story about a young man who learns about business and life from an unlikely teacher. Imagine Thorndike's The Outsiders meets The Karate Kid. You're probably saying to yourself, fiction? Really, Jake? My goal was to give you everything you'd learn from a good nonfiction book, but wrap it in an entertaining story. It's available now on Amazon in both print and digital formats. And now, without further delay, let's get outside. Yeah, this is one of my favorite hikes because you have a lot of this going through rocks and stuff, and then you're by the creek, which is enjoyable, and then you go through, there's like 3 different climates you kind of go through. Eventually, it's like up on these slabs of granite, and then you go through kind of a foresty section, and then you climb, up out of that. It's just cool to get that kind of variety in like a mile and a half or whatever.
Is it 3 miles round trip?
It's probably something like that.
So I was telling my father-in-law, who's a retired firefighter, does search and rescue now. And we went for a hike a couple months back, and I'm just like, I need to get some hiking shoes. Well, this is like the cheapest man I've ever known.
Yeah.
Like he never spent a penny, saved it all. Now he's got like a couple $1 million and pension, and he still's not spending his money during retirement.
Of course.
But he went out, whenever he buys people presents for their birthday and stuff, it's always like, I got you the shirt from Costco.
Yeah.
And I love him to death, but it's just always, it's like a running joke now,
Like this one.
That when he was a firefighter, everybody's gift would always be something fire related.
Like that was laying around the station?
Exactly. Or like the fire guys, they get their own shirts printed for their station, so it says like, Sac Metro Fire, Station 64.
Right.
And then it would always be like, he'd give it to my wife, and it's just a unisex size medium, so it's like a dude shirt.
Yeah. Fits her like a glove.
And
so thoughtful.
So he got me hiking boots because he heard me complaining about hiking, and like, just sometimes with running shoes, they just move around a little bit.
Yeah.
But more so when you get them wet, you're toast.
I noticed you're not wearing hiking boots, so is that that an
so
indication?
He got me, and I put them on, and they felt like wearing a brick. It was like everything that's wrong with hiking boots that have stopped me from buying hiking boots, he got that pair. But what it did was it made me start looking around for hiking boots, and I had no idea how cool they are now. Like if you spend $150, you can get a really nice pair of boots that are as light as running shoes, waterproof, thermal. I mean, I'm cheap, I'm not gonna buy them, but
theoretically, if one wanted to.
Or I will buy them, I'll just secretly buy them for myself for Christmas or something like that.
Right.
Like the North Face has a couple cool boots. There's some other brands that I've never heard of that were at REI and stuff like that.
Yeah, my thinking on that has kind of evolved over the years, where I used to be super tightwad about that kind of stuff too. And I realized like something like hiking boots, if it gets me to go one extra time or a couple extra times than I wouldn't otherwise because I'm excited about wearing them. Or, like I waited probably 2 years. I wanted a Patagonia jacket, like one of those nano puff ones.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd like look at them online and be like, I can't pay $200 for a jacket. That's ridiculous. Right? I'm never going to do that. And there was a sale, and it was down to like $150. And my wife was finally like, I'm tired of looking at you looking at these jackets. Why don't you just buy one and move on with life? And I was like, oh, I don't know. All right. So I ended up getting one. I've probably worn it like a million times now.
It's your go-to?
Yeah. It's always the perfect temperature, no matter what the temperature outside is. And it's probably amortized down to like 4 cents every time I've worn it now. And it's like, why was I waiting for? Like, there's things I think to spend money on that make a lot of sense. And that might be one of them.
This is beautiful.
Yeah.
My parents this is the first time they've ever gone to Europe. And they did like the ancient ruin type of tour or on the Mediterranean. So they're doing Greece and Italy. And I think they're going to go to the Middle East at the end.
That's cool.
They're very religious people. But it's just funny when you see, like, my dad, he's sending me all these pictures of all of these famous geographical locations or whatever.
Yeah.
And none of them have my parents in them. It's just like him taking pictures of it. And finally I'm like, Dad, I don't want to fucking see pictures that I can Google.
Right.
Like, there's way better pictures online. I want to see my mom and dad having a blast. Like, take pictures of you guys.
Right.
It's like, but this is a beautiful place.
This is the pyramids. Like, yeah, I know. I've seen it.
We've seen it. It's been on the cover. Like, the best photographer ever has covered this.
I was wondering if it's better now. Like, with technology, before you had to go, like, sit for an hour and, like, watch a slideshow that your parents put together of their vacation, right? But now you just get it fed to you in real time. And you end up, perhaps you waste even more time looking at the pictures than you would want to.
That's funny. I have to look at them all now.
I have to see them all and respond to every single one.
So how's the project going with your wife? Her business stuff that she's consulting stuff?
Yeah, it's coming along. I mean, she's going through a lot of the same entrepreneurial ups and downs, you know, where you get a lot of energy for it and then you start to feel panicky and then
what am I doing?
Yeah, and then get more energy for it. We've been working on our website for a while, trying to get that dialed in.
What kind of a website? Is there like a front end, back end type of thing?
Nah, it's just front end.
Okay.
I mean, you get a little like email capture and responder series, that kind of stuff, but I think it's going to be cool. I'm excited for her to actually like get into it. I think once she gets going and actually working with people, it'll be a lot more fun than for her, and she'll...
The relationship side?
Yeah, that's more where she gets her energy. So this like beginning part where you're building up, and that's the stressful part for her. Like, that part's fun for me.
Yeah.
I like that part of business, is building. But for her, I think it's stressful because it's not her element.
Yeah, it's cool in the beginning because you can say, like, we doubled whatever our metric was last week.
Yeah. It went from 1 to 2.
Yeah. Like on the estate planning technology that we rolled out a couple months ago.
Yeah.
I think it's 3 months old now, 4 months old. It's like when I get a report from our lead estate planner, like, this was our best month. This was our best week.
Yesterday was our best day.
Yep.
That's pretty cool. Has it caught on pretty well?
It's starting to.
Yeah.
I think it's a really easy product to sell because there's not much competition. And it's very simple and quick to understand. There's one value prop. You know, we coordinate basic estate plans. That's it. There's no other Swiss Army knife to have to understand.
Yeah.
So that's helping. We haven't made a huge push for marketing yet to the masses just because we're working through stuff
Right.
as we go. But we just passed 100 users. So it already has become like a real business, you know?
Yeah.
If each of those guys create one plan a month, it's $50,000 a month.
That's cool.
So it's neat how it's just there by itself. We've done some direct marketing that I've helped out with, and that's brought in I mean, it's almost like a faucet. When you turn it on, there's water. When you turn it on, nothing's there. So that consistently, as soon as I turn it on, it's like 10 users a day. And then, we hit capacity, turn it off.
You spend a lot of time thinking about kind of tools and technology and how it fits in with finance. And it does seem like there's this kind of a weird dichotomy of some people want to build the thing that like does everything versus more niche products. Like, what are your thoughts around that?
It's tough. It's like there's the laptop full of stickers, or the big fish trying to eat up all the little ones to grow bigger and bigger. I don't know. I have the luxury of being an advisor in my past life,
Yeah.
So that helps me out a lot.
You know the customer.
Exactly. And I've always been a fan of out-of-the-box solutions that I can plug and play in kind of a modular way for whatever task I need to build, to not have to get married to a bigger company, and to their vision and their culture and everything else. Like if I go in, a great example is, and this isn't even an advisor tech, but a learning management system. I have bought in on one package that was like my all-in-one solution.
Yeah.
And I really was only there for their video management. And then they pivoted and were like, we're not going to focus as much on this. We're going to focus on building our community internally.
Huh.
And then it was like, well, crap. I've been using you for my marketing, for my outreach, for my video hosting, for my website hosting, for my follow-up. And now you guys aren't really good at any of those things.
Right.
So now I'm much more like, I like almost the TD Ameritrade model, I guess, to circle it back to finance, more than I'm going to go to a TAMP that does everything for me.
Right.
Because as soon as one piece isn't doing as well, I can unplug it and plug something else back in.
Yeah.
That is the winner. And with advisors, I think the ones that are winning and the ones that are thinking about winning in the future in a growth perspective are always thinking about niches and who they can target and have a much more customized message to. And those guys see the most growth, like that upfront growth. And I think products will, if you focus on one beachfront, you're gonna have a lot easier of experience, especially when you look at adoption curves and stuff like that, like how Salesforce exploded and going to Merrill Lynch first. And what's amazing is that they started with Merrill Lynch, and Merrill Lynch had that whole, they bought their first 10,000 licenses or whatever. And now Salesforce only has like 10% market share of financial advisors. And that was where their bread and butter was.
Huh, what happened there?
I think they just used that as their beachfront and then expanded to the areas that made more sense for their company. But they didn't start up Salesforce and say, we're going to focus on
advisors,
financial advisors. They started up and then realized, oh, this could fit a niche. We'll focus on that niche and then leverage that opportunity to be able to spread in the way that we want to. So I think tech is kind of a similar thing. With like, first we have this category that we fit really nicely into. Maybe it fits along with our core values, and then it catches fire and we spread out. And then we get these big aggregator tech companies like a TAMP, or, even we see all these purchases happening with InvestNet, and then they get so big that they have to buy things to be able to keep growing.
Yeah.
And then they become so vanilla that a niche is so small that I need a user growth that's 100,000 users this month, and this niche is 10,000. I'm never going to be able to go after it. So then these little guys come in and pick up those tiny niches, and then they grow, and then they start taking share away from the big guys.
So it's just this constant evolution of like product market fit, and then someone doing it better, smaller, grabbing it.
Getting all the user complaints from the big guys and exploiting them.
So what are you working on right now that you're most excited about?
Most of it, I don't know if I'm even allowed to talk about it.
Oh, yeah.
But unfortunately. But I feel like using it, just where technology is moving as far as information technology, and using all these data sets that we have.
Yeah.
And being able to build really cool visualizations to make portfolio management and asset management easier for advisors to be able to use and then communicate to their clients. and kind of democratizing that process, because I think there's a ton of tools out there that are just like Excel with, you know, an extra
Excel with like a lot of the functionality hidden behind the scenes.
yeah, with makeup on it basically, you know.
Yeah.
And then you take off and you're like, oh, that's just a basic spreadsheet. So all that stuff I think is really fun to be able to expose, and then with what I have going on at Helios, being able to leverage our team and a really successful core business to be able to fund those kind of projects.
Yeah.
I think that's the future of fintech, is
taking shots at like bigger things.
yeah, you're going to get it for free now. And then we're going to use the free tools and services that we give you to be able to figure out if we're a good product fit or not. It's not like informational calls and sales calls. It's here, use our technology, and it's a super soft sell. If you like it, you might like what else we're doing.
Yeah.
And we don't need to have a sales guy out in the field just
ramming people to.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the new iteration of getting in front of people at scale. And I'm really excited about that stuff.
Huh. So what do you see yourself in like 5 years? What does it look like?
I have no idea. The last 5 years have been so insane.
Yeah.
That I could give you a guess, but I bet you I'm not like 4 standard deviations away from being correct.
Yeah. Well, 5 years ago, would you say like kind of just typical advisor world and like working in there?
Well, no, because 5 years ago, I guess to take it even farther back, that's when I pivoted and thought I was going to be making more personal finance stuff at scale and selling video series and things like that.
Okay.
To be able to help mass amounts of people understand the most important financial decisions that they can make that would have the biggest impact, and you know, distribute that and just be a content beast.
Yeah.
And then that failed, you know, for a bunch of different reasons that I was naive about, but too many hands in the pot and people get greedy and stuff like that. And it just breaks the system. But then all of that turned out to be probably one of the greatest learning experiences, to be able to pivot and go, oh, okay, I know how to be an advisor, because through all of that, I was still continuing, you know, to better myself as a financial advisor.
Yeah.
But then I also learned a lot about the tech side. I learned a lot about the content side. I improved my skills on video and audio. And now it's kind of like the Dilbert thing where those skills overlap. And so I don't know where the next overlap will be, I guess.
Right.
So for the next 5 years, while I'm doing this, I think I'm learning a lot more about advisor tech. Is this a beware bears sign? Nice, we'll be all right.
Yeah, I think we're okay.
You know, a grizzly bear is faster than Usain Bolt? Crazy.
In a straight line.
35 miles an hour. Are we going the right way?
Yeah.
Okay. We lost those people with the dingo, right?
Yeah, they went the wrong way, I think.
So yeah, I'm curious where this new path heads. I think I'm learning a lot about advisor tech.
Yeah.
And I have this kind of fresh scope on how to communicate that stuff and market it, that it's wedging a unique place for me to be able to have conversations or unique insights that wasn't there. And so I'm learning a lot about tech, and then I'm getting way better at portfolio management as well, and having those conversations with advisors on a much higher level, because Helios has 22 billion in assets that it influences right now. So it's kind of swimming upstream. Plus I get to make more content like this. So as those three begin to overlap, I think will put me in a really
interesting confluence of factors
that not many people. I'm always trying to think about how I can position myself uniquely.
Yeah.
As opposed to being the best.
Like, what are the couple pucks that you feel like you're kind of skating toward to converge?
I don't know, I think that, like, going back to that new wave of technology that's coming out for advisors, and being just having a seat at the table. And if there's one thing I'm good at outside of being an expert, which I'm not good at being an expert, it's just finding the experts and then being around them.
Do you think the network is one of the things that's a key ingredient?
Yeah, because I really enjoy taking content and having conversations and finding unique insights and ideas, and then being able to simplify those and distribute them to everybody. And so I think that's where I finally get to hang out with people like you that are super smart and come up with better ideas and then be able to distribute it. And I think that's just going to keep growing on top of itself. And then that network, that's my new version of equity. Like when people are like, oh, we need to start a business so that you have equity in this and have buy-in to it. And for me right now, I'm like, I don't really want equity like that because it ties me down. Where I want the equity is audience, impact, relationships. And then once I find that thing, then I can just go straight to the heart.
Right.
Because I have the network and the people behind. That's where my equity is. You can't take that from me. You can sue somebody and take their equity and ruin their lives, but you can't take relationships from somebody.
Yeah.
Without, it being some sort of, I don't know, some crazy black swan event. But in reality, like, if I build those up at this early part of my career, then I feel much safer in protecting my family and all that, and have the right people behind me, and me being behind the right people, Yeah. It works both ways. It seems like the best win-win. Ooh, look at all these ferns. It's a good sign when there's ferns around.
So that means there's
Good
bears.
air. No, good air.
Oh.
I think the Boston fern is the best, purifies the air the best out of all the...
Is that right? Like the O2 production?
Yeah.
Is that how they look at that? Isn't it cool though how we're like now in a forest and we were on like slabs 10 minutes ago?
It's pretty remarkable. What I was getting to, like, going to Maui really pulled me out of that. Not this year, but last year. Because every single day, that was the first vacation we took as a family. And every day it was like, let's make an impact. And we're not just gonna go sit at the beach and drink pina coladas. Yeah. We're staying in a condo, we're making sandwiches in the morning, and then we're going for hikes all day in the rainforest and soaking up real culture. And my wife and I are real beach people as well, so going to specific beaches, surfing, snorkeling in the right spots, hanging out with locals and stuff like that. So every day was just really impactful. We'd leave at 8 a.m. and wouldn't get home till 10. No screens, everybody's exhausted. Wake up rejuvenated, great moods. You're getting all the chemicals you want in your brain.
Yeah.
It was amazing. And then when I came back, you feel like you want to live where you're on vacation and then
keep it going.
Yeah. And I was like, what? When you get in your routine and then you're taking your kids to baseball on the weekends and you're working 12-hour days during the week.
And you're right back into the grind. Again. You're not.
And I was like, why don't we just, like, on my weekends, we're making sandwiches and going to explore new trails. Like, that was a huge tipping point for us as a family of realizing, just get up and make it happen. And it sounds silly saying it out loud, but
it's harder than it sounds though.
Yeah.
It sounds super easy, but
the grind is real.
Our lives are pretty dominated right now by kids' sports when as far as free time goes.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes it all the harder to pack that sandwich and get out on the road, because there's literally like some commitment every single day pretty much. Like we'd have to be missing something. I'm not sure about what lesson that sets for the kids. Mm-hmm. It's like, yeah, you want to commit to things and you want to, if you say you're going to show up to something and be part of a team, like, yeah, you definitely want to honor that commitment. I think that's important to teach. But there's also something about so much specialization so early that I have a little bit of question marks about.
Completely agree. Did you read that book? We kind of went back and forth on Twitter when you told me to read about MVP. What was it?
Is it Range by Epstein?
Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, all that he obsesses about, and a big portion of that book is like the 10,000 hour rule is a hoax.
Yeah.
Specialization shouldn't happen very early on at all.
Yeah, like it was the Tiger Woods versus Roger Federer model.
Mm-hmm.
Like learning and
Federer's mom was just, you're not allowed to even
touch a tennis racket.
Yeah. It definitely made me think about my kids. Anyways, my wife and I have been seriously considering, with the two youngers that are just now getting into it, how much youth sports is actually beneficial for the kids.
Yeah.
And what else could we do with all this time, all these weekends? We could be doing stuff like this. Are they really going to be pro athletes?
I mean, the odds are not favorable there, but But if they're into it and you want to kind of feed that fire of passion that they have, then how do you...
If they're going to be pro, they're going to make that choice on their own, right? I can't stop them either way.
Right.
So we might as well go enjoy the rest of life. And then...
and let them beg you to do all this other stuff.
Like, you weren't going to be able to stop Roger Federer. And maybe you weren't the same degree going to stop Tiger Woods, but having that freedom of knowing that the kid's going to find their passion and zero in on it. Yeah, I've had to back off so that my son will, like it took him to get benched to want to work harder at baseball.
Is that right?
Not me telling him. And I don't want to tell him because that's how you get burned out. So where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Whew, boy, that's a good question.
I'm going to turn the tables.
How dare you?
This is my show.
Yeah, I'll ask the questions, thank you. I would say the last 3 years, maybe 4, have not really gone like I would have hoped they would go. I knew that there would be difficult periods for any investment strategy and that you have to live through them, and that's just part of the game. There's gonna be cold streaks. But I was hoping that it wouldn't come so early in the journey. And it's come relatively early. And all that does is just makes you slow down a little bit and be like, okay, am I still going in the right direction? Is this what I want to be doing? But, I still love what I'm doing, and I think I'm doing something useful for people, even though, my strategy is not working like I would want it to, and I don't have as many ideas as I would hope, and it's very hard to sit in a lot of cash for long periods of time.
Mm-hmm.
I've tried to keep myself productive and busy with things that are at least tangentially related to my normal job of helping people manage their money. Mm-hmm. Like writing a book and, messing around with interviews of authors and like reading a lot and just trying to sharpen the saw in general. But I do feel like a little bit of diminishing returns on some of the saw sharpening, and it'd be sure nice to cut some wood. You're a little bit of a prisoner of the environment that you're operating in, and there's only so much you can do. Even if you're a really strong swimmer, if the tide is going out on you, then it can be difficult, and you can't expect to just be like, well, you just want it more, or like, unfortunately, this game, I think, in investing is not one where you can hustle to the point of like just wanting it more and have that actually translate to results. Certainly you have to have effort, and that's just table stakes. Mm-hmm. But there's this idea of like, I don't know, like Rudy on the Notre Dame, where it's like, well, he just wanted it more and like outworked everybody and like was grinding it out. Like, well, I don't think that works in the investment world as much, because it leads you into talking yourself into things that are probably not good ideas just because you want to stay active.
Not the ideal spot.
No, it's not the ideal spot to be in right now. So,
well, it sounds like there's some lessons of Stoicism in here.
Boy, learning them whether you want to or not. There's definitely some Stoicism required at this point.
What are some tools that you've used to help you through this time to, one, not make bad decisions because you're motivated by inertia, I guess?
Yeah.
Like, where do you turn to stay energized, make the right calls, continue the course, be like Seneca, but without the naked bodies?
Yeah.
Or with, whatever.
Yeah, well, for me, it's been mostly like reading, trying to keep historical context.
Like, what's a really good historical context?
Well, let's just say even like valuations, for instance. General market valuations. I'm not making any predictions about where things actually going, but I know that historically, when you start from this price to some fundamental value, your returns are pretty anemic. That's just like has always been the case. And there's a lot of arguments now about why it's different this time, whether it's kind of winner-take-all dynamics of some of these bigger tech companies like network effects and the internet, and those things all might be totally true, and it may be different this time. Historically, it hasn't paid to bet that this time is different. And so yesterday I saw an article that was in Barron's that said, does the Federal Reserve's actions mean that market corrections are a thing of the past, or something like that? Like basically, don't fight the Fed. The Fed controls everything. We're never going to have a correction again in our lifetimes because they're there. That I'm very dubious that is a true statement.
That is a giant ant. Looks like a bullet ant. Have you heard of those bullet ants?
No, tell me about it.
I forget where they're from. So they get their name, the bullet ant, because when they sting you, it feels like getting shot by a bullet.
That sounds terrible.
And there's some guy on YouTube who my son loves to watch. Basically goes and finds like crazy things to be bitten by. Yeah, I don't get it. My thing is, I bet you that they're faking it, and they use a bunch of local anesthetic. You know, like they numb up their arm, and then they put their arm out and get stung. And then I was asking my son, like, what's the cutoff point where you would money for pain? You know, would you do it for 10 grand? Would you do it for?
Yeah, what is his number?
He doesn't have a real good concept of money, so it's way lower than me. It's like, yeah, $5.
That sounds like a lot.
Yeah, my daughter's at the age where it's not about how many cents the coin represents, it's how many coins you have.
Oh yes, she's a penny machine magnet.
Look, I got 25 pennies. You only have 14 quarters. I'm way richer than you.
Yeah. It's kind of funny how that lays bare the shared mythology of what money is, right? Like, well, we're just all agreeing that
one's worth more.
That size is worth 25 of those guys.
Right.
It's all just made up stuff anyway.
Yeah, and the kids kind of laugh in our face about it. It's like our reminder how dumb. Kids remind us how dumb we are. And if you're not seeing it, you're just stubborn.
So yeah, I don't know. To go back to the 5-year question.
Or 2 year, or 1 year.
2 year, or 1 year. You know, even a correction in something, it doesn't have to be the entire market. Like, just anything going on sale would be interesting to me and probably have me hooked back in again.
Are you ready for things to go on sale? Like, what is that process like for you?
Oh yeah, definitely.
In size, type, position?
Well, my monitoring of it is I keep track of a bunch of ETFs that are representative of industries and countries, and I'm keeping an eye on those, like where are they moving around. And there's points where you can buy an entire basket of a country for 50 cents on the dollar, and at that point I don't need to know a ton of individual analysis to get comfortable starting to nibble on that.
Because it's such a steep discount?
Such a steep discount. I think of it as like owning a value study. So if you look at all the different studies that have been done, whether it's what works on Wall Street or AQR or a million different studies that have been done, Tweedy Brown, those are a very generalized basket of cheap stuff. And the more that I can do that and buy assets for cheap, the less I need to know idiosyncratically about each company. And then I'm approximating the value studies in my mind. And I like where those end up. Like, I know they're not all going to work out, but enough of them will that it'll lead to pretty good outcomes. So that is a big starting point for just looking for stuff that's on sale. I'll also I'll look through the ETF to what's inside of it to make sure that it's being calculated correctly. Like that the aggregated valuation of the ETF matches the underlying businesses inside of it. So that takes some time to, I always double check that before.
Is there a minimum number of like flows you need or a shelf life of the ETF?
I mean,
or do you not even care?
I don't really worry about that too much. I don't think I bought anything that was like brand new, so I haven't really tested that theory. Like, is this an ETF that's going to be available for a week and then gets shut down because it didn't get to scale? It's probably a good thing to actually think of, and I don't think about it enough. But it hasn't really been a lot of an issue because
none of these things are that cheap today. So
The thematic stuff is really interesting to me because it has like this core premise, its own investment strategy. It's almost like creating its own index.
yeah, what do you mean by like thematic? Like looking for those type of
Well, you see them in the growth side and the
narratives of
exponential
things.
stuff because it's sexy. And then you have like sector stuff. And I feel like you have this top level and then sector based and then very thematic. And a lot of those ones don't have a lot of flow and they're brand new.
Yeah.
And then with this new ETF rule, do you think that all like new ETF issuings coming on the market that are more specified towards your strategy will be helpful?
Yeah, I think it's going to be amazing because it increases the granularity that I can take on building a basket of cheap stuff. Like I can really dial in, oh, do I want micro cap, Japanese, 2 industry ETF, and I get to hold that whole basket, and it costs me very like nothing in trading costs now.
Right.
And I can get whatever
Literally.
exposure that I want to dial in that makes sense to me, and not have to take ones that are more like broadly based necessarily that I'm like, well,
I'm going to get a bunch of stuff I don't want.
I'm gonna get a bunch of
And-
stuff I don't want, but I'm still overall the aggregate is pretty attractive. But if I could dial it in even more.
Would you ever entertain making your own ETFs?
Yeah, I have a couple ideas on that. Like,
So it's beyond the entertainment realm in the 5-year?
I guess I don't have a definitive plan in place, so
Got it.
I can't say that it has a timeline on it, but I have a couple ideas that I've kind of kicked around. And as I'm kind of waiting for the price of startup of an ETF to keep dropping, because I don't.
Which it seems like it's on that path.
Yeah, and I imagine it has to just keep falling. So eventually, I'll be able to start one for a very, very low potential loss. Like that just has all upside if it does work out. But right now, the costs are a little bit steep for the odds I feel like of success. So I don't really like that bet at this point, but it's getting better every day. So it's a puck that's kind of in the back of my mind, and I'm skating towards it through different projects. It's a long, long way from being a live thing. So, and who knows what I'll get distracted with in the meantime that means it never happens. I'm pretty good at that too.
That's fair.
So it seems like you've been kind of drawn towards a little bit more like the global, I would say, like world of advising and investing, and not like individual company research. Or like, do you have any thoughts on why that seems to be the case, or am I way off base?
I definitely think you're on point with that. And I think it might be a factor of just career flow, because I'm definitely attracted to things that don't have liquidity. So I think there's a lot more opportunity to do interesting things. Like real estate is the easiest example.
Yeah.
Where you can go to a house that's foreclosed and look inside the windows and talk to the neighbors and get all this insight before you even make a buy.
Yeah.
And there's not going to be that many bidders, and it's only going to happen at this one time, and you got to show up and be there. Nice save.
So yeah, it's like a very fragmented marketplace.
And all of those little friction points are really interesting opportunities. And that just grows with businesses. You have these small companies that C Corps issue shares. They have problems with their board. People won't get rid of their shares. Got to do some unique arbitration to be able to grab it off of somebody and then allow the guy who actually had the idea to go run the company.
Yeah.
That stuff's really intriguing to me. But just where my life has put me, like you were saying about fighting against the flow, I've just been positioned to help people with their asset allocation.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of power and importance to that as well. And if anything, it gives me a free education on the big picture, so that when I get the opportunity to go small picture, which I'm sure there will be, I'll have those perspectives to overlap.
Yeah, if you look at things like Tobin's Q, like buying versus building for the last 10 years, it's been the best time a much better time to be a builder and a seller than it has been to like try to buy stuff for the most part. Like there's just too much money chasing too few ideas.
Right.
So you're overpaying typically, it seems like, for most assets in the world. So if you were the one building the asset, putting the value together, and then packaging it up and selling it, like it's been a seller's market.
Right.
So
That's fair.
I think maybe that will change. Like there's been other points where, early 1980s, there were tons of assets on sale that were already built, good assets that you could get for way cheaper than than it would be to replace them or to rebuild it yourself. And that was a time to be an acquirer and not a builder. You wanted to be an aggregator, a roll-up artist, conglomerate. Like that worked out well then. So I think there's different seasons for different approaches, and I think maybe we're getting towards the end of, I don't know, this season of seller's market, and maybe it'll be a buyer's market again, and you'll be in a good position for that. All of which is to say, like, I don't think the opportunity cost has been crazy high to have not been buying things.
Well, my real estate guys sure did kill it.
Is that right?
Oh yeah. But I mean, that's all starting to level out exactly what you're saying right now. Like, all that discount is gone.
Yeah.
And it might not ever come back in that particular market, as deeply as it was there.
Right.
At least maybe not in our generation.
Yeah, some of these things are like generationally
unique.
Yeah, I mean, you're just right place, right time. What do you think about FinTwit in general?
I think we're peak.
Really?
I don't think peak is the right word.
But it's like bubble from here.
We've hit a plateau, and it could go in different directions. I think it could have a new wave because there's 250,000 advisors. When people think about FinTwit, they think it's way bigger than it is. 1 out of 20 advisors I meet are on Twitter in a meaningful way. Maybe 1 out of 50 in a meaningful way.
I would think it may be even lower than that. Yeah. I mean, especially the age demographics probably.
I just mean anecdotally that I meet.
Yeah.
And quite literally, it's probably 1 in 1,000. Yeah, I don't know. What do you think? 25,000 of them on there?
That sounds high to me. And there's only like 250 people that matter.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
I mean, that make the charts. Like,
yeah.
You get your Avi picture on there. So I went through this with music, and I saw it on the first wave of FinTwit before FinTwit was really there, because I was on a different pseudo-anonymous handle when I was doing Financial Time Traveler. And I was in the early days with FinCon and some of those guys, and I caught on late to FinCon, but it was still early to where it is now.
Yeah.
And I saw that the first wave, like you have your Ramit Sethi's, your Noah Kagans, your Amy Porterfield's, Joe Saul-Sehy with the Stacking Benjamin show. There's a lot of amazing content creators that are now like millionaires from it, that were all over Twitter at the time. And it's like a new graduating class has moved up. And a new graduating class. And I feel like...
Do they get too good for it or something, the other people?
No, I think they build really big businesses, and I don't have time to necessarily be on Twitter and network like I used to, because now I'm taking care of my clients and the people I have fiduciary obligations to. And I feel like we might be hitting that next plateau where we have the next level of like the older stars.
Graduating out.
Yeah. And now we have like the Tyrone Rosses and the Justin Castellis that are moving into those places I see.
Yeah.
That I'm rooting for, because I think they're great people. And then we have like newer guys coming fresh on the scene. And then we have like the Mount Everest, like the Josh Browns and Barry Ritholtz.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I thought that there's a huge momentum going into WealthStack, where a conference, like a physical manifestation of a digital experience, had actually happened. And it's almost like a subgenre creating like a real thing. It reminded me of like punk becoming punk, and then all of a sudden it's like, headlining at the biggest festivals and having its own festivals. And that's where I feel like FinTwit is kind of like early stages of a subgenre of music, and now it's
crossing over
like
to
a mainstream genre.
Yeah.
Like it's covered on the mainstream channels.
Right.
Like Alex Chalakin's video of Ken Fisher was on Bloomberg today and Washington Post.
Yeah.
And it's like, now it's it's starting to become
legitimized.
yeah, and different. Like it's now mainstream, and then when you have another mainstream, now you're going to get subgenres. And I think that's where it's at. Like, are these subgenres going to disrupt the bigger one, or are the bigger ones going to try to not let the subs go, and then they're just going to sabotage themselves because they're not the, you know, the high growth, you know, like deep discount and then explode?
Yeah.
I don't know, but I definitely think that it's a paradigm shift moment for that community.
No, it's very interesting to kind of watch it. Like, I'm considering myself more of an observer, you know, outsider.
An active participant?
Yeah, I mean, I do a little bit here and there, but it's not, I don't spend a lot of time.
Sometimes like
I don't work very hard on
I
it.
tweet too much. And other times I'm like, I'll take a week off.
Well, I wonder, especially someone in what I work on day to day, the noise potential of Twitter is so large.
Yeah.
And granted, you get tons of signal too, but
Right.
I mean, you don't kid yourself. There's a ton of noise to get to that signal.
Hell yeah.
And I think it's like, that could soak up all my bandwidth, and I couldn't do anything else really.
Totally agree. You have to be like disciplined with it, which I don't know. I struggle with it as well. If I had my wife on the microphone right now, she'd say that it's an addiction.
You're not,
That's a problem.
You're struggling harder than you admit.
Exactly. When I go home, like I need to put the phone down more, and it's hard because the conversation is ever going.
Right.
And so if you tweet something at 3 o'clock, that was a great thought, and now you're in conversation with people that might get you to a next idea, you can't just shut it off, because now you're going to lose all that momentum, or you just shut it off and realize what's more important, and then you probably don't get as much interaction the next time that you try to voice something.
That's right. It is a place to focus on your network building that I think could provide a lot of like 80-20 value, but I think you also can very easily, like it's addictive in a way that tips you where you chase that last 20% and don't get it. Yeah, diminishes quickly.
I think the anonymous side of engaging is really interesting as well, because I think if you explode to a point and you're using your personal name, there's some sort of ceiling to it where you can't escape your name, and people can attach all of these like pre-existing.
Yeah, your name
Whatever.
becomes a label.
Exactly.
Then that,
where if you're anonymous, I could walk away from this. I can make it whatever I want.
yeah, you could pivot much easier. Like you're not.
So the upside, I think, is way bigger, but the initial run, I think it's way easier to come out and just be Nyle Bayer on Twitter, because the trust factor is immediately there, because you can find me. I am who I am, and I stand by what I say. But then at the upside, if I ever got to like 200,000 followers, there's probably going to be a ceiling there.
Yeah.
For the same reason, people are like, F that guy.
Right, you become a target. Like, I don't know, is it like a jealousy thing? And if you don't have a face to put to it, like you don't get jealous of an anonymous account?
I think they still get that jealousy, but they can just say F you because they can do whatever they want. Like, this isn't me, this is an idea. And ideas can change, but I'm always me.
Yeah.
Or you can be a really unique person and just continue to reinvent yourself. This is really neat. This looks like it's out of Star Wars. You weren't lying about this being a bitch going down.
Hope you enjoyed today's Hikecast. If you'd like to take me on your favorite hike, email me at 5goodquestions@gmail.com, all spelled out. Lastly, pick up your copy of The Rebel Allocator, available on Amazon in both print and digital formats, and soon to be Audible. See you on the trail soon.